Sony will be huge at E3 2017, at least that's what the floor plans of the show us. Here to discuss with me is of course Zach Sharps. Hey man.
What's up? How you doing?
So, I'm doing fine,
Good.
because I'm super excited about E3, and Sony, it looks like, will be there in a very big way. So, if the floor plans for the E3 2017 are up, and of course we're going to compare that with the floor plans of E3 2016. And
Get your
what that
rulers
shows you-
out. Get your rulers
Yeah.
out.
What it shows you is that Sony is actually bigger than last year. I mean, normally they have like as big as Nintendo sort of space there, and yeah, they also have of course here something in the left. I will show it in the video. You can see it right now. But yeah, they're like their width is way larger than it was in 2016. So are they going all in? What's going on? It's not like they have a new console. The PS4 Pro is out and stuff like that for PSVR. So what's kind of going on here? And it's also interesting that if we compare it then with Microsoft, it looks like Sony just kicked some space from Microsoft, because Microsoft is now in another hall. They're like as big as third-party publishers. This is the South Hall. Microsoft is now in the South Hall. Was of course first in the West Hall. They're like as big as Ubisoft, Warner Bros. Activision is back. Was there? Was absent like last year. So that's pretty interesting. But Microsoft had this huge space, but now Sony took a little bit from that, and we have Big Ben and Atlas and Sega there now. So what do you make from this? Is this like a sign that Microsoft is like going, they're of course going to show the Scorpio? Are they going to be huge at the show floor, or maybe they will do something else? Because they of course also moved their press conference, Microsoft, to the Sunday, so maybe they will have an event that Sunday and think, okay, let's not do a lot of space at E3. While Sony is of course probably still on Monday. At the time of this recording, they haven't announced a date for their press conference yet. You would imagine it's still on the Monday night. But what are they going to do?
Yeah, I think it's obviously a really bad thing, at least in terms of the size that we see, the visual size of each of these spaces, that the company that needs this E3 the most is half the size, over half. I mean, Sony has over doubled them in terms of the size visually. Now, square footage wise, I'm not entirely sure how big each of these halls are. I've never been in them, so I can't really speak to that, but I'm sure they're probably about the same. Yeah, and that's why
the sizes are the same.
Yeah, so I'm assuming there's no real visual difference in terms of the actual square foot representative. It's probably like what we see here, over double the size Sony has versus Microsoft's little tiny blip that is the size of third-party developers.
Yeah.
And that's not a good thing, because they need this E3 the most. They need to show up big, and maybe they still will show up big, and they just don't really have a lot of floor space, and they don't really care about the floor space. But it's definitely a little worrying heading into E3. Like, what do they have plans? It's obviously not going to be a big floor space arrangement. They're not going to be hoarding in a bunch of people, but this could also be just Sony realizing that this E3 is going to be opened up to the public, and if they have a lot of floor space, that gives them even more exposure. And I think Microsoft is shooting themselves in the foot, because they probably didn't think about that. Or a conspiracy theory, maybe the stockholders that hold Microsoft stock are getting really irritated with the Xbox division, even more irritated than they already were in the past, and they don't want them spending a lot of money anymore on this.
My take will be from Microsoft is that because they also moved to Sunday, they probably will have an event where like the biggest press, YouTubers, streamers will, after the show, get to play all those games. So then at the show floor, of course there's public, but that's like 15,000 people. I mean, they still are there, right? They are still showing stuff. And Sony also has like multiple platforms. They also have the PlayStation VR. So you would imagine that some of the floor space is for the PSVR as well. And of course, you need more floor space for the PSVR. Because you also have to put up the headset and stuff like that. So it's a little, you need more space for that. My take will be, yeah, I think that Microsoft also has their other thing because they're now moving to Sunday. So yeah, they have this whole night for them, and or they're in the morning. Like they have this event during the day probably where a lot of people can already play a lot of games that during E3 they simply don't have to be there as big. It's interesting. My other thing is that why Sony is like huge at this E3 is because they have some third party like games that they really want to show off, that they have a deal with, and that they will maybe do a lot of marketing for as well. For example, for games that are usually not at E3. And yeah, last year Activision was not at E3, so Sony also had like the new Destiny, something for that. Now they are there, so Activision is going to push Destiny and like Call of Duty, the new one, of course, themselves. I think that that's a smart thing because last year, of course, they didn't really have a new Destiny thing. Rise of Iron is not as huge as a totally new sequel, and yeah, the Call of Duty just simply didn't do so well. So maybe they thought, okay, we need more exposure. While Rockstar games, for example, are not at E3, and they normally aren't. And Red Dead is, of course, coming up, and Sony is, yeah, they already announced that they have the deal, they have some exclusive online content. So it might be that Sony will be showcasing this at E3 as well, that you can maybe see the game at the Sony booth. That will be a huge get for Sony. Or it just means that they have a ton of exclusives that they can't wait to show. Like, we expect, of course, Spider-Man to be there. We expect, of course, God of War to be there. Detroit should be there. Maybe they have some sort of demo for Death Stranding, what the guys from Kojima have been working on, or some other things that they will probably announce. Days Gone is, of course, coming up. So they have a huge like lineup there that they maybe want to just show. And while I don't think that PSVR will be like a huge pillar for them during the press conference, last year they had some announcements. Of course, it was before the PSVR was out, for the Battlefront, Batman, stuff like that. Batman was playable at the show floor like last year, so maybe they have some sort of PSVR setup as well, but that's not enough for the whole space. So I think that they will also just have a huge showcase of all their exclusive games. And if you then go back to Microsoft, of course they are going to announce some new stuff, but I think that they also have a lot of third-party partner deals with games that will be showcased at the third-party booth. Like with the Scorpio, they will have the most powerful console, so it will, for third-party publishers, be super interesting to showcase their games on that console because it will simply look the best. So yeah, but then if Ubisoft showcases the new Assassin's Creed on the Microsoft show floor or at Microsoft press conference, it will still be playable at the Ubisoft booth and not at the Microsoft booth. So because I don't see Microsoft just pulling a lot of exclusives out of their head that will then be playable. I really think that they're now in a sort of weird year. I mean, the Forza developer is now going to make an open world game, but yeah, they just started. So they're like investing now. They see, okay, Sony is doing an amazing job with their exclusive games. Horizon, something that it has been in the works for 6 years. They gave them the time. They saw this first person shooter developer and said, yeah, go make an open world RPG. I mean, why not? It's like pretty interesting that you do that you give them the money to do that. And Microsoft is now maybe starting to realize, okay, we need to do that as well, because Halo Wars 2 might be a good game, but it's like your comparison with the Coke and like the vending machines.
Yeah, the vending machine.
Yeah, so that you get the same stuff at the Microsoft vending machine, while the Sony vending machine has a lot of different flavors. So yeah, I think that Microsoft right now is in an interesting place, and they might want to showcase the Scorpio, but yeah, I mean, if you need the games, right? And I don't know. It will be interesting, but it's totally a shake-up from last year, and that's pretty pretty
Yeah,
cool.
it's a shakeup in like the worst possible situation for Microsoft, right? It's not just like, oh, they're minimizing space right now because, you know, it's maybe late in what they consider the console generation or whatever, and they just don't really care to have much space. But that's not really the case here. It's they're launching a new system holiday of this year. They are behind and need to catch up, and they have now the smallest out of the big three in terms of space. So that either means that, like I said, they just don't really, you know, and like what you said, they don't really care to have like that floor space to have people, you know, demoing stuff, because maybe they don't really have a lot of games to show off, or maybe they just don't really see value in that floor space as Sony does, because Sony has their VR and everything, or they just don't really they're not going to have that big of a presence, and we're going to have another conference from Microsoft where they come on stage, they mention a few things, and then they fill the rest of it with talking and fluff. Which is what they're known to do. You know, I don't think we're going to see, and I think there's definitely unreal expectations of people hoping to see a Sony bang, 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 you know, here's a trailer, conference, because they just simply don't have the capability to do such a thing at this point. They need to have that capability. Maybe they're seeing that, you know, with Forza, the Forza developers doing an open world game now, or a new open world game. But I mean, that's a little bit too late unless they're trying to build for the future. In this case, they need something to sell Scorpio, but I mean, I can't think of anything that will sell Scorpio. And seeing these floor plans, it worries me, but I mean...
Yeah, but maybe they're going for Scorpio, like, for this PC sort of box in your living room, and do you then need to play all those Steam games at the Microsoft booth? Maybe they will just, do something like this, so it makes sense for them to not be as huge.
And that's an interesting thing too about it. And if my prediction originally back yonder comes true, that they're gonna have Steam on this freaking thing, and it's gonna be a Steam box that has, you know, exclusive games on it as well, and, you know, stuff like that, but it's more of an intuitive PC, that would be interesting for the industry for sure. And I wouldn't mind seeing them go in that direction. I mean, Microsoft as a company has been, you know, touting that they're gonna do like a lot of Windows 10 changes soon, and that could be something incorporated within Scorpio. Yeah. Who knows, you know? And they also have like the game mode that's coming out on Windows 10, which a lot of people think to themselves, okay, well, this minimalizes tasks, like, why do I need this? Maybe this is why you need this, because they're gonna have it in Scorpio, because it's gonna be more of a PC. I mean, it's like, what are they gonna be doing with this box? And so you're definitely right. Scorpio is a wild card, and it's certainly an intriguing thing for us to look forward to. But will it be enough? And are they going this route? If they are going this route, will it pay off, or will it just make them, you know, fade away even more? Like, they're in an interesting situation. This whole floor plan makes it even more interesting, because they're having less of a presence in terms of floor space, so that just puts the focus even more on their conference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that we like discussed it. It's interesting that, of course, Nintendo is also going to be like big. They are always there, but they need it for the Switch as well. And it's cool that Activision is back. They have to push Destiny 2. Really excited about that game. So curious to see how that will look, and how they will showcase that. Sony huge. I really hope that they have a lot of these exclusive playable, and that will be super interesting. For Microsoft,
you going to E3 this year?
The plan is that I'm going. So
should be fun.
Yeah, exactly. Really, I think that this will be a really fun one, because the consoles are now like, they're here. The huge games are starting to come. They all have like a huge like lineup planned, especially Sony, Ubisoft. You still don't know what they're going to show. I mean, the game that we know of that is upcoming is South Park, but we already saw that. I already played that, so they already have they have some other games as well. The Switch is finally there. Of course, Nintendo last year I was only there with Zelda. Cool stuff, but yeah, it's way cooler if they have multiple games. This year they will probably have Mario, or they already announced that they will be there. But it's cool to see that some people that the show floor is filled with a ton of publishers. But I'm kind of worried about the other people coming in, like with the like how you can move between the halls, because you have to. There's also like a huge space between these halls, so if you have to be at 12 in the south hall while you're in the west hall, you really have to run, and if there are like 15,000 extra people there, it will be interesting.
A pain in the ass, yeah. I can see it. It'll be sort of like a PAX effect where it's just super crowded, and luckily you'll be pressed, so you'll have a pass, and that probably will help you out a ton, but getting from point A to point B is going to be a bit of a strenuous task, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So we will be covering...
I will just say there's going to be a new strain out there called E3 Pox now. Just wait and see.
Oh my god. No, we will be covering E3 way more as we near it, so maybe we can do some predictions as well and stuff like that when we near the show. That will be super interesting to hear your thoughts as well, Zach. So thanks a lot for discussing this topic with me. Subscribe for way more gaming discussions, like the video if you did, and let us know what you think about the floor plans of E3 and that Sony is kinda huge and Microsoft is kinda little. So let us know in the comments down below. Thanks a lot for watching. We will speak to you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.